Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's 7:07. Thanks for tuning in to O'Connor and Company. Best way to get your day started here in your nation's capital. Coming up in 30 minutes, John Curran. He'd like your vote for Lieutenant Governor of Virginia. And at 8:35, Eric Swoyer of Washington Times will chime in on Chief Justice Roberts wading into political waters with some statements he gave to Politico. I don't know, when you're talking to Politico, maybe by definition you're being political. We'll get into all of that. I'm Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
I think you know this person.
I do.
Yeah, it's Stephanie Lundquist-Arora, not only a mom here at Fairfax County, Virginia, and an author, but also the Fairfax chapter leader for Independent Women's Network, which Julie Gunlock knows a little something about.
Do.
Why don't you bring your friend to the table here and let her tell her story?
Stephanie, thanks for coming on this morning.
Hi, Julie. Hi, Larry. Always a pleasure.
So you broke this story. This is incredible. Your kids go to public school in Northern Virginia, and you have been a fierce champion for parents in the Fairfax County schools. In fact, you're sort of have emerged as a leader of how parents can respectfully yet forcefully fight back. Tell us this latest story, what is going on in the Fairfax County schools.
Thanks, Julie. I appreciate that. Well, recently the West Springfield High School has put up a display, and they decided to put the ABCs in the hallway, which is really interesting in high school anyways, but just an interesting idea. I don't know if it's really remedial learning.
Fairfax County Public Schools. I mean, by the time you're a sophomore, you should know your alphabet, okay?
You would think. Some of them have filled up. They need to go over this again. But, you know, instead of A being for, and this is for Women's History Month, it's a Women's History elective course. Instead of A being for Apple, or even if it's for Women's History Month, instead of A being for Aviator, Amelia Earhart, They just start out with A is for abortion with a picture of a coat hanger and a positive pregnancy test. They have several others. I could go on. I could talk about how crazy it is all day. H is for hope with Kamala Harris. J is for justice with the Palestinian flag and the trans flag next to the Statue of Liberty. Yes, there's several. T is for trans woman. We can't forget that. And Women's History Month to erase women.
So T is for men.
Right.
Yes, T is for men for Women's History Month. So it's just such an obscene display. And you wonder, how could this possibly have graced the hallway, the history hallway that everybody walks past? So I emailed them and I said, how did this make the display? And they basically tried to ignore me.
Of course.
They didn't. And I said, this is really inappropriate, particularly the A is for abortion is, I just can't even imagine how that would make the litmus test of things being okay in a public school, no matter your political inclination. Like, all Americans who value a solid fundamental education for our kids should object to this. And in fact, they do. I think even if you're a pro-choice person, this is an obscene thing to put in the hallway. And I would really like to commend my son and his friends really took issue with this and brought it to my attention for recognizing just how inappropriate this kind of indoctrination in public schools is. And after I published an article about it in the Daily Signal, and after I did that, a mother in the district reached out to me over the weekend, and she told me that her son, who attends the school, tore up the A for abortion sign. He was really upset by this. He thought it was, they're a religious family. He thought it was just really inappropriate, like we all do, and he had that reaction. Yeah. So the administrators, of course it was on camera, brought him down to the office and counseled him for having a visceral reaction, and then they immediately replaced it.
Of course.
So obviously a student was emotionally bothered by this, which we should all be. Even adults are emotionally bothered by this. And I think it's really gaslighting by definition, right? Like as if the young man's response to the whole thing is the issue here. It's like telling an assault victim, well, let's talk about what you did. Was it dark when you were walking at night? Like when you got jumped?
Right.
Right. And they
How
claim
short
to be
was your skirt?
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, you've got...
And they claim to be inclusive, but they're just like, they're overtly engaging in viewpoint discrimination, even against children.
Yeah, you write up the story. It's incredible. J is for Justice. It's a Statue of Liberty holding a sort of a sign. A Lady Liberty is surrounded by the Palestinian flag, the Ukrainian flag, and the transgender flag. N is for Now, the National Organization of Women. L is for Leadership, features Kamala Harris, AOC, and Michelle Obama. Of course, no Republicans pictured. This is just obscene. It really is. And what is has there been any reaction? Because this has gone viral. This is now national news. And again, thanks to your excellent reporting. Has there been any change? You say this display is still up at the school, correct?
Yes. As of 3 p.m. yesterday, the display was still up, and there's been an outpouring of reaction. A number of parents have called me, forwarded me their emails. They're sending emails, and I encourage your listeners also, if you take issue with this, let your voice be heard. Let people know. Send an email to your school board member, the superintendent, and the administrators at West Springfield High School, which is, by the way, only 17 miles from the White House. So this is definitely the definition of indoctrination of our children in their public schools. But as of 3 p.m. yesterday, the display was still up, despite all of these emails and this kind of outpouring of response. And in their defense, because you're like, what could the defense possibly be? Right. Their defense in response to a different media outlet, their defense was that, this was a student project, which I think is funny because the schools and the district administrators basically try to condition a project where they tell kids to do a certain thing in order to justify it. Yep. And how strange is it that everything on that wall is so ideologically homogenous? If it was really just a simple project that wasn't completely orchestrated by the teacher, there would be at least a little bit more kind of more variation. But I would also like to add to you that the teacher of this, according to the West Springfield High School website, she is also in charge of the Democratic Socialists of America Club and the Young Democrats Club. So if you just think about the ideological biases of the teacher, it's like, you can see how this. And one more thing about her, she also teaches U.S. history, which is a required class. And for an extra credit assignment, in the previous year, she's asked students for extra credit to spell out on the essay what they have done or will do to help the LGBTQ community. So this is, to say that this is student-led is just absolutely ridiculous. It's
outrageous. Yeah, exactly. Even if you're buying that it's student-led, there's supposed to be adults in the room. There's supposed to be paid adults who are teachers. Imagine, I'm thinking if they came up and made P for pornography or P for prostitution, which many feminists would say are incredibly empowering for women. But I bet you the adult in the room would say, yeah, maybe we can find something else for P. My favorite is M. M is not for motherhood. M is for mansplaining. And by the way, Julie, mansplaining is when a guy needs to explain something that should be normal to a woman, and then
Larry, I deal with it every morning. Every morning.
Yeah, I forgot about that. All right, never mind. Stephanie, thank you for bringing this to our attention. Thank you for raising this issue, and we look forward to hearing the official word from not just this high school, but from Fairfax County Public Schools writ large and the school board. Something tells me this will come up at the next school board meeting, and I sure hope it does. And we'll be here to cover it for you. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you, Stephanie.
It is
Thanks so much for having me.
WMAL traffic and because I felt like I needed to explain to you what mansplaining.
Yeah, got it. Thanks. Thanks so much. Thank God for Larry.
Jamie Witten is in the Hadid Carpet Cleaning Traffic Center. Now, the Traffic Center, Jamie, is a place where you
Larry
tell us what's going on the roads.
There you go.
You leave Jamie alone.
M is for mansplaining.
Oh, man. All right.
WMAL, making sense of the news.
I don't want to have to mansplain this to you, Julie, but constitutionally, who is responsible for the impeachment process of federal judges?
That would be the Senate.
the Congress would pass the article of impeachment, and then the Senate would do the trial.
Yes.
That is correct. That is correct. But apparently, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court doesn't recognize that constitutional fact, because he was asked by Politico about President Trump's recent statement that the federal judge who overstepped his boundaries in the Constitution by violating the separation of powers and tried to dictate to the commander-in-chief how he should conduct foreign policy and national security with the disposition of foreign nationals who were in this country illegally and had been deemed a terror organization. This would be Lundquist-Arora, the terrorist mob from Venezuela who infiltrated this country. They were deported, and a judge tried to stop that process. It was an obvious national security move by our commander-in-chief, completely covered by Article 2. Trump did not like that this judge violated the separation of powers, so he said on Truth Social that this judge, like many of the crooked judges I'm forced to appear before, should be impeached. So Chief Justice John Roberts was asked about that by Politico. And now when someone from Politico is calling you for a comment, and you're trying to stay out of politics because you represent the judicial branch, you would think that the Chief Justice would be more circumspect, perhaps a little bit more disciplined, and recognize that whatever comment he made would be taken as a political statement because you're talking to Politico. So he should have, I would think, as a wise judicial justice, say, you know what, I'm not going to wade into that. We will let the appeals process proceed on this judgment, and the impeachment power lies with the legislative branch. It's really not for me to comment on. Chief Justice Roberts did not say that. He instead said, for more than 2 centuries, it has been established that impeachment is not an appropriate response to disagreement concerning a judicial decision.
Not disagreement. This is not disagreement. Yep.
The normal appellate review process exists for that purpose. Now, let me read once again what Donald Trump's statement was. This judge, like many of the crooked judges I'm forced to appear before, should be impeached. He didn't say anything about disagreeing with the decision. He said that the judge is crooked. Now, you may disagree that the judge is crooked, but if you are a crooked judge, you should be impeached. That's one of the grounds for impeachment.
Yes.
And there's some suggestion that this judge and a couple of these other judges do have conflicts of interest.
Absolutely.
And do have some, but even beyond conflicts of interest and regular, sort of typical corruption, if you are overstepping your powers and infringing on the commander-in-chief's role, yes, you should be evaluated for impeachment.
I also love this idea that Roberts is giving, like, we've been impeaching judges left and right. I mean, what can Trump do? Trump literally cannot go to the bathroom without some federal judge going, you know what? No, you can't. And it has been happening with every move, from transgender serving in the military to the border to, getting rid of rapists and murderers out of our country. These federal judges have been all over the Trump administration stopping what a president should be able to do. And there has been no action, none. So I love Roberts going, whoa, 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 let's not do anything wrong. Nobody's done anything to these out of control rogue judges.
Well, this is the best part of it. So he's upset that Trump is coughing back. So again, we'll go back to, our history lesson. Let's do a little Schoolhouse Rock here. How much power does the President of the United States have with impeaching a federal judge?
I hate it when you ask me these questions. I don't know.
Well, I'm actually giving you a hand signal. I'm giving you the answer. We're on radio.
0.
You should look at me once in a while.
Thank you. Okay. Right, 0.
How much power does the president have in impeaching a judge?
0.
0 power. Now, follow-up question. How much power does the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court have in impeaching a judge?
0.
So maybe they should just shut up.
Right.
Listen, Trump's allowed to say, listen, Trump is Trump. Here's the best part. Well, Trump is really inappropriate for saying that. Okay, now do John Roberts.
Right.
Because if Trump is inappropriate to chime in on this, Justice Roberts is also inappropriate for chiming in on this. But now, no, we've got a constitutional crisis, and it's Trump versus Roberts, and it's Roberts versus Trump, and it's all playing out in the media. And the next time Roberts joins Elena Kagan and Sonia Sotomayor for another big decision coming out of the Supreme Court, sadly, his judgment will be called into question because he has gone out of his way to deliberately wade into a political issue that he had no business commenting on. And Justice Roberts, if you don't like your judicial decisions and your great legal knowledge and wisdom being questioned by people because you consistently side with Elena Kagan, then maybe you shouldn't wade into political issues. Just maybe. I hate to mansplain that to you, John Roberts, but, you know, if the shoe fits, it's 7:23.
Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
7:37 on this Wednesday in your nation's capital, 19th day of March. Thanks for starting your day the right way with O'Connor and Company and your favorite radio station. We just talked about this, what appears to be a judicial overreach by some federal judges, and then John Roberts wading into the politics of it all. Alex Swoyer of the Washington Times covers the Supreme Court. Alex will be joining us at 8:35 to discuss that. It's Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock.
Good morning.
Good morning to you, Julie. Julie, a Virginian, by the way, who's sort of doing all of her due diligence in evaluating the various candidates for this very special year's election. As you know, Virginia engages in Commonwealth-wide elections for governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general, as well as seats in the Senate and the House of Delegates the year after the presidential election. So we are in the midst of it now, primary season, and we want the WMAL listeners to be the most informed voters in Virginia. So let's welcome in John Curran. He is running for lieutenant governor of Virginia, and he joins us now. Mr. Curran, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and what brought you to the point where you want to be one heartbeat away from the governor's office.
Well, I'm a Navy vet. Basically grew up most of my life in Northern Virginia. About 5 years ago, my wife and I moved down to Williamsburg. I ran in a race for the local supervisor chair and started learning a lot about what was going on within the State House. And I realized it was basically nothing but gridlock. Party politics and gridlock was going on. And even though I know in Virginia, the lieutenant governor has very little legislative authority besides breaking a tie vote in the Senate, they do have a whole lot of ability to become an influencer, take it public, use the pulpit of the lieutenant governorship to bring the people of the state into it, create transparency, and basically call out what's going on. And I decided that's what I want to do. That's what I took the role to do, was to actually become an influencer in Virginia through the lieutenant governor's office, get people more involved and let them see what's actually going on and the bills that are being blocked that's actually affecting their lives by not going through.
Well, we certainly need influence when it comes to, I'm looking at your sort of issue areas. You say you're pro-family, pro-business, and your first school choice. We just interviewed a mom in Fairfax County who is sort of raising Cain because of the political indoctrination going on in Northern Virginia. We know this is a problem within Northern Virginia, but how would you advocate? You know, the best solution to this stuff. We can nitpick on particular issues like this one in the Springfield school, but the best solution is school choice. Virginia's not a leader on school choice, right? What would you do to really push for the expansion of school choice in Virginia, something parents are desperate for?
You know, that's a good question. I don't know if you realize this past session, there was actually a bill to kill the religious exemption for homeschooling.
Oh, yeah.
And since COVID, where parents actually saw what was going on in schools, homeschooling increased in Virginia 36%. And what aggravated me about this whole thing is here's a couple of state senators who are trying to stop the ability for parents to have their choice, but they're not asking the question, why are these parents taking their kids out of school?
Right.
And we need to address that. And I know Luis Lucas, who is the head of the Senate, the ranking senator in the state, blocked Governor Youngkin's school voucher program that he went for. Didn't even take it to committee. It was dead on arrival. And she isn't representing the state. She represents the Portsmouth area. She was elected by them. If there's a school district that needs school choice, it's her district. And those are the things that needed called out and forced. You know, Virginia is a government of citizens. And when you saw that issue come up with the religious exemption, those committee meetings were packed with parents every single day, every committee. And it forced them to finally that bill was defeated. Now, we all know if we lose the governor's seat and the lieutenant governorship and the AG, as well as if we lose any more seats in the legislation, that bill is going to push right through again, and we're going to just start taking people's hands. This is the fundamental right of a parent to teach their child, and we can't stop that. And these things, especially through people like you, need to stay in the forefront, especially during the election season. You know, it's basic. We shouldn't be teaching.
We're speaking with John Curran. Sorry about that, Mr. Curran. John Curran, double R. It's Curran for Virginia with two R's, A-N. Mr. Curran, the conventional wisdom here on this election says that President Trump's initiatives to reduce the size of government, get rid of waste, fraud, and abuse, and implement government efficiency, which could very well mean that several Northern Virginia families will be on the unemployment line, that's going to negatively affect the Republican ticket. What's your campaign message when you go out on the trail and you either need to defend President Trump's moves, or are you opposed to them? How is this playing for you politically?
Going around the state, I haven't had a whole lot of pushback. I think a lot of people are willing to kind of wait and see. Like, I compared it kind of when I have to clean my garage out. It becomes a mess. Everything gets thrown out, pushed out of the garage. Some things get thrown out, some things get brought back in. I think we need to give it a little bit of time to see where everything lands. I understand there was just 20,000 people reinstated that were dismissed. Some of these people are afraid of losing the job can come back. The other problem is we need to stop relying as the government as the primary employer, especially in Northern Virginia, and start bringing in other jobs and other industry through Virginia that we don't have to be a government state, basically. You know, the old government store, where we used to deal with steel companies and coal miners in different areas. We can rely on different industry. I grew up, my father, my sister, my brother-in-law were all government employees. Grew up, if it wasn't for the government, I probably wouldn't have food in my mouth, right, growing up. But we can't rely on, they're not the only choice in town. And usually when a government job is disappeared, we end up with a contractor job. I think we're going to be okay. I think there's a little shock right now. I think by election, we'll probably see we're doing better, and I think it'll actually pay off for the Republican Party.
John Curran wants to be the Republican nominee for Lieutenant Governor of Virginia. Check out more information for him at curranforvirginia.com. Sir, thank you for joining us. I'm sure we'll talk again.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
WMAL, making sense of the forecast, because you never know what Mother Nature has in store. Download the WMAL app to stream us for free.
Over the weekend, President Trump made it known that he opposes the relocation of the FBI headquarters from D.C. to Greenbelt, Maryland. That was the decision that had been made during the Biden administration. Many saw that as sort of a political gift that Biden gave to Wes Moore, and also a way to punish Glenn Youngkin for daring to be a victorious Republican in Virginia. The GSA, they say, chose the site in Greenbelt because it would be the cheapest. But actually, there was a lot of politics, if you remember, involved in this when Chris Van Hollen, but they were talking about equity. You know, out of equity, we should move this. You know, right. That's why it should be in Prince George's County, because that's why you want to move an FBI headquarters. FBI rank and file, trust me, they want it in Virginia because they would like to have no problem carrying a gun into work.
Right.
That's because they're FBI agents.
Yes.
The 61-acre site in Prince George's County was chosen because it scored in various criteria, but including DEI reasons as well. Well, now that's back on the table. Virginia leaders think that they might have a chance to get this back. Although, you know, if I remember right, didn't Kash Patel say he was going to turn the current FBI headquarters into a museum of the deep state?
That's right. That's right.
I'm still waiting
for that.
I'm
still hoping. That's going to make
or
a
it
really...
can be the...
It's going to make
a
really
location
great
of a really killer podcast by the deputy director of the
or
FBI.
a field trip for homeschoolers.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely. The battle lines are drawn here on this thing, and it is, there's a lot of local politics involved in the decision of where the new FBI headquarters should be. It seems to me it should be closer to Quantico. Quantico is where the FBI agents train.
Yeah, exactly.
So that makes sense. Traffic-wise, things are better in Virginia to get around than in Prince George's County in terms of getting into D.C. and out. There's tons of reasons why it makes more sense to be in Virginia. But politics plays a major part of this. And it's funny, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, if you're the governor of either Virginia or Maryland, you figure out a way to work with whoever is in charge of the administration. You set aside party politics sometimes because it behooves your state to have a good relationship with the number one employer. But good old Wes Moore in Maryland, I mean, he's part of the resistance here. He was a huge part of Kamala Harris's campaign, and he has basically said that he has no interest in working with the Trump administration.
Right.
Meanwhile, Glenn Youngkin, of course, campaigned regularly for Donald Trump. So if you're Trump and you have decision-making power over this, and politics does play a role, why wouldn't you punish Wes Moore and reward Glenn Youngkin?
And Moore does not waste any moment to insult Trump. He says he's gone off the rails. He says he's dismissed any possibility of working with Donald Trump. He says he's deeply underwhelmed and troubled by Trump. He really isn't exactly a great negotiator here. Why wouldn't Trump say, okay, well, you can't negotiate with me. You think I've gone off the rails. You think you're underwhelmed and troubled by my behavior. Well, then fine, I'll go work with the Virginia governor.
Right, and Wes Moore will say, well, he's just being selfish and narcissistic. Well, that's what you're being.
Yes.
By not setting.
Exactly.
You're both being that way. The difference is he has the power position here. He's the customer.
Yep.
Right? He's the one who's got the credit card ready to spend a lot of money in Maryland. Local journalist Robert Dyer, he writes a blog called Bethesda Row. He makes a really good point here. He draws up the comparison with the British Prime Minister, Keir Starmer. He total left-wing socialist lunatic, right?
Right.
This guy doesn't like Trump. He doesn't have anything in common with Trump, right? But he knows he's got to work with America.
Right.
They got to have a good relationship.
Right.
So he shows up at the Oval Office and he opens up his, tweed sport coat there with the elbow patches. I don't know what Brits are wearing these days. And he pulls out an invitation from King Charles for a state visit at Buckingham Palace. It's like, so that's how you work. You work diplomacy, man.
Yeah.
So explain to me how the socialist in London knows how to work with Trump better than the governor of Maryland who can't figure it out.
And you gotta love that Wes Moore is often mentioned as a presidential contender. Yeah.
Well,
he can't even figure this out. I mean, let's put him up there in the Oval Office. Great idea, Democrats.
Let me tell you something. Wes Moore is so underwhelming.
Amateur.
So what? He has a great smile.
Yeah.
I'll give him that.
Yeah.
And he and for the Democrats, he checks all the right boxes.
Sure.
Let's just say if racial politics didn't have anything to do with it, Wes Moore would be as popular as Kamala Harris. And we'll just leave it at that. It's 7:53.